This lecture podcast is brought to you by ThinkLink Institute. Join our lifelong learner program today and ThinkLink with experts for your intellectual journeys. You can also support us in our mission to connect audiences with highly qualified experts in social sciences and humanities. Visit www.thinklink.co and choose the educational assistance program you would like to support.
All right. Bismillah. Today I will talk about a topic I think is central to the problems of the Ummah today. And basically, Western social science claims to be on par with their physical sciences. Because we are all very impressed with the West, and there is certainly reason to be impressed with the physical sciences. We accept this claim and face value that social science is like physical sciences, just as empirical, rational, logical, and all of the other good qualities associated with the West. However, what I would like to say is that social science, Western social science, is actually the religion of the West, and it has no claim to factuality. It has no resemblance to physical science. Because we have been deceived into believing a religion which is diametrically in conflict with Islam, with under the false conception that social science is neutral science, just like carpentry or just like building a car. So, accepting some of the central tenets of Western social science has made it impossible for us to understand the teachings of Islam. So it's really quite a central issue. All right, so I would like to differentiate between what is the knowledge that was given to us by Islam, what Western social science is, and what it claims to be, which is a universal truth. So at the heart of the Islamic revolution, which came to this planet 14 centuries ago, was a revolutionary knowledge. The initial words of the Wahi are, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So Allah Ta'ala starts by stating that He is going to give mankind a knowledge which He did not know, and we can see the effects of this knowledge on history, that the Bedouins who were ignorant and backwards were catapulted to the leadership of the world. So this knowledge was obviously a very powerful kind of knowledge, but at the same time we see that Muslims are at the bottom ranks of civilization today. So obviously they do not have this knowledge that they acquired, and this is in accordance with the prophecy that Islam came as a stranger and will become a stranger. So how was this knowledge lost and how can it be recovered? And I'm saying that basically the knowledge that was given to us by Islam is diametrically in opposition to Western social science, and Western social science is taught to all of us, and we end up believing it, and therefore we cannot access Islamic teachings. So what is the fundamental knowledge of Islam? And it's very simple. Islam teaches us how we can become human beings and how we can achieve excellence in conduct, and how we should build our families, how should we build our communities, how should we build societies, and what should be our attitude towards humanity as a whole. So that would be the roots of an Islamic social science, if such a thing existed, which it unfortunately does not. Now, as opposed to this, as we will see, Western social science is built on entirely different foundations. Basically, it's based on rationality, objectivity, and individuality. Every person is an individual. Every person is a mini God. He has the right to do whatever he wants to do. and nobody should interfere with it, that is freedom. And similarly, then the issue arises that how do you, when you have so many guards around, how do you decide how the group should work? So, well, then there's the democracy that, okay, since everybody has a guard, everybody has an equal right to participate in the decision making, so just count the number. So all of this I'm saying is that Western social science is a religion, but it claims to be a science, that it is objective, empirically grounded, rational, factual, and this claim has been widely accepted. And once we accept this claim, then it becomes impossible to understand what Islam was all about, and therefore it becomes impossible to launch an Islamic revolution. So, to begin with, we understand that what is Western social science? It is an analysis of European historical experience, and it extracts lesson from what happened to societies in Europe. However, European social science pretends to be universal. It says, no, this is not particular lessons that we derived from European history, even though you can show very easily that that is what it is. But they claim that it has universal application to all of humanity. So, two people, I'm citing two experts who have understood that, and Michel Foucault says that modern human sciences purport to offer universal scientific truths, but in fact these are expressions of ethical and political commitments of Europe. And similarly, Timothy Mitchell says that the possibility of social science is based on taking certain historical experiences of the West as a template for a universal knowledge. So basically, social science is an expression of certain ethical and political commitments, but it is disguised as a universal scientific truth. And now, colonization is basically a conquest of minds. We all think of that colonization was physical conquest, but you can't understand, but a handful of people cannot control millions unless they acquire their willing assent to this rule. And the willing assent is acquired by feeding them a framework of the world that allows them to agree to this colonization and to accept this and to think that this is for the best. And so basically, the social science is exactly the science which provides the justification for Western superiority and for our inferiority. It explains and rationalizes, and as long as we believe this, we will believe that the West is superior to us, and we will, and the only path to progress lies through acquiring their knowledge, which includes the social science. Now, as opposed to this, the history book called Global Rift by Stavrianos tells us that actually the development and the wealth of the West is exactly the opposite side of the underdeveloped and the poverty of the East. Basically, very simple, West colonized the world and they extracted millions of pounds of surplus wealth from India and from all over the globe. So the wealth they stole made them rich and made us poor. It's exactly the same thing. So the so-called development of the West is just the name for their wealth. And if we look at social science, if we look at physical science, it has very impressive achievements to boast of. But if we look at social science, when we ask, what did you accomplish? So we see that the last century has been the most deadly century in the history of humanity, with 50 million killed in World War I and II, an almost continuous state of warfare. And just most recently, millions of innocent civilians destroyed in Iraq and Libya and Syria and all over the world. They are wars going on continuously only in the name of power. And this is the law of the jungle is dominant in the world. And if you have the power, this justifies its use. And no one will question why you went and destroyed the entire infrastructure of Libya, the hospitals, the industries, and of Iraq. No one asks this question. But those people who don't have power, if they do even a small crime, they are called to question. So basically, this is what the social science is based on ideas developed by Machiavelli, and it has led to breakdown of families and communities, the rise of suicide, the loss of happiness in market economies. Lots and lots of people have noted that all of this accumulation of wealth has not made extremely rich societies happier. And there is destruction of the human individual thinks of himself as nothing more than a piece of material for sale in the labor market, and does not realize that human lives are infinitely precious. Families and communities and societies have disappeared and vanished, and in fact, according to the leading thinkers, there is no such thing as society. It's all just individuals. So social science has not contributed to creating prosperous societies. So basically, a key to the Islamic revolution that we want to launch is knowledge. And that requires that rejection of Western social science and replacement by an Islamic alternative. But how can this be done? So to do this, we have to deconstruct Western social science. We have to understand what it is, how it emerged, what were the problems, because social science claims to be universal. We don't even think about it in these terms, but we have to think about it in particular terms. How did the West come to this body of knowledge historically? What were the problems in European societies that led to the creation of this body of knowledge? Also, a very important and interesting issue is, why does this knowledge pretend to be universal? Why do not they say that our knowledge about societies is based on European societies' experience and cannot be generalized, which is actually the truth? Why do they claim that it is universal when it is not? So for that, we have to go back to the origins of Western social science, which starts with the loss of faith in Europe, loss of faith in Christianity. Now, what the Europeans have told us, and we have accepted on face values, is that the sun of reason rose in the West, and when this enlightenment occurred, Europeans learned to reason and think for the first time in human history. Nobody else had ever learned reason and rationality and thought. They were all just following whatever the ancestors said. And in the light of reason, Europeans saw that religion is just a collection of superstitions which makes mankind backwards and puts us in ignorance. And the light of reason showed them that science is the way to the future, and it leads all of us to, and they had tremendous achievements. And the process of what has been called deification of science, it came to be believed and continues to be believed widely that science is the only source of reliable knowledge, and that ultimately science will solve all of the problems of humanity. However, this narrative is not true. So what is the counter narrative? So we have to we have to create the counter narrative, because this narrative, although it is available from European sources, it's not, you have to dig it out because it's not the mainstream. So in one of my lectures, which is referenced on this slide, I have discussed 4 causes for loss of faith. It was not that Europeans learned to reason and then they saw that religion was wrong. Actually, what happened was that there was a sequence of Renaissance popes who were extremely corrupt, and they flaunted their corrupt behavior. They had mistresses and illegitimate children, and they sold pardons for sins to raise money. And that was the cause of the Reformation. The Protestants came up, and then Protestants and Catholics started fighting in enormously violent ways. If anybody has seen the Game of Thrones, this is exactly the depiction of European history, that the cruel and barbaric wars just for the sake of power, just played as a game with the lives of millions of people just to achieve power and glory. 30 years war took place, in which 8 million people were lost. It's still one of the bloodiest wars in history. And there were many other causes which led to a disenchantment with religion in the West. One of the important ones was also the unrealistic religion of Christianity, which made as ideal no sex, no family, poverty. So the ideas that they held up were unrealistic. They were not human. So even the popes could not hold to these ideas, and people thought that religion is just hypocrisy. So these are particular events, but the big picture which we should understand is that there was no model of excellence in human behavior which the Europeans had in front of them. The models that they had, which came from Christianity, were extremely defective, both in terms of theory and in terms of practice. So they did not have ideals which they could follow, and they were left to develop these ideals from using their senses, their intellect and their reason and empirical experience. But this breakdown of religion, which eventually led to a widespread loss of faith in Europe, that Christianity is not true and therefore religion is not true. This is one of the major problems which has occurred in European history, that they immediately generalized from Christianity to all religions without examining any other religion. So they said that, well, if Christianity is false, then all religions are wrong. And similarly, if Christianity causes warfare, then all religions cause warfare, even though this is historically incorrect. But this loss of faith was enormously traumatic for Western intellectuals, because and many people, many major social thinkers have expressed the despair that follows from loss of faith, that if there is no faith, then everything is just an accident. And Bertrand Russell has a quote that we must, that there is nobody watching. If you do good, nobody cares. If you do bad, nobody cares. And nothing matters in the end. We will all be wiped out in a big atmospheric physical catastrophe. And so we must build our lives on the firm foundations of unyielding despair. Nietzsche had a parable of the madman who came into the society and said that you have killed God, meaning that you have lost your faith in God. And this is enormously consequential. You do not realize the enormous consequences of the deed that you have done. I think it was Camus who said that suicide is the only serious philosophical question. Given that life is completely meaningless, should we continue to live this? And there were these philosophies of Dadaism and existentialism, which basically say that there is no meaning to life. We create the meaning as we would please. So nearly all major 19th century European social thinkers suffered from nervous breakdowns. So, but the more important issue for our purposes is that the consequence of loss of faith were that all of the fundamental questions which religion answers were left open. How was the universe created? How were humans created? What is the meaning of our lives? How should we behave towards each other? How should we organize our society? What is the nature of knowledge? How can we distinguish between truth and falsehood? What is good? What is evil? All of these questions were open because religion is no longer accepted as the reliable source. So you have to start from scratch, from zero. You can only rely on your aql, your intellect, and your empirical experience. You reject everything supernatural because reason, as interpreted in the Enlightenment, meant that you must reject anything which you cannot see. So social science is exactly the name of the efforts to answer these questions using observations and logic. So some of the simple answers is, how was the universe created? It was not created. It has existed forever, is what the scientists thought. But the Quran says that in the creation of the heavens and the earth, there are signs for those of understanding. And actually, when it was discovered that the universe was created at one point in time, and there was nothing before that, this caused huge amount of perplexity because there was a huge question that is opened. Well, if the universe was created, then who created it? And there are many, many puzzles that are created by this creation of this universe, which have no answers in contemporary science. And when you ask the scientists about the answers, they say, we'll find the answers, don't worry. And that's all. So they have faith in the ability of science to find the answers to major puzzles which cannot be resolved at this point without positing the existence of God. So actually, at this point, belief in science is a faith in the unseen, in the hope for the future that someday we will find the answer to the question of how this universe was created, because nobody knows the answer. Similarly, the complexity of the human creation is so large that leading biologists have said that this cannot come out. Life cannot come about by an accident. So Watson was one of the double helix fame, said that even though he was an atheist, he said that life could not be created by random recombination of molecules. It's just too complex. And so he said that since God does not exist, the only possibility is that some advanced civilization sent a rocket ship across the stars to seed life for this planet. So he is willing to believe anything except God. But even these are simple questions. How life came into existence, how the universe came into existence. Maybe science can find an answer to these questions one day. But the major issues which science cannot find an answer is, what is the purpose of our lives? Except for just saying that it is meaningless. And this is that is what the conclusion is. And similarly, what is the nature of knowledge? What is it that we know and what is it that we cannot know? So can we learn about meanings? Can we have visions? Can we have deeper understanding then that goes beyond what we can see? So once you reject God, as happened in Europe, then you come to the conclusion that life is meaningless. And this leads to a lot of consequences, that alienation by Marx, whereas people used to find meaning in their work, now it's just work for money. The purpose of life is the earning of money. And the value of human life is measured by the amount of money you can earn. Commodification took place so that human lives became measurable in terms of gold. So we sell and buy lives in the labor market. And also the land, which used to be, the Mother Earth was the metaphor for the planet, that it nurtures and sustains us, and in return we must nurture and sustain the planet. No, now this was just a dead machine and our job was to earn money for it. And this change in attitude is actually responsible for the environmental catastrophe that we are facing. And since there are no morals that can be derived from empirical resources, so the only purpose of life is pleasure, power, and there are no moral constraints. So Global conquest is justified if you can do it. And all strategies, all is fair in love and war. If you can deceive people, if you can, if you need to kill 6 million people in order to achieve your goals, there is nothing to stop you, because logic says that if that's what's necessary, then you should do it. And so basically it's the law of the jungle. We are just animals like other animals, and the survival of the fittest is the social science of today. And it justifies both warfare and corporate business tactics today. So, the Islam teaches us entirely different lessons about human beings. It says that Islam is Deenul Fitrah. It is it's built into our nature. And our hearts can, very interesting, the Quran mentions in many places, جَعْلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ. We gave you the eyes and the ears and the heart. So the heart is also an organ of perception. It allows us to see God, but it also allows us to see good and bad. And so this is denied by the West. Man has no built-in nature. He comes out with a tabula rasa. His mind is a blank, and he has no heart and no soul. These are not observable, and so not scientific to think about that. So basically, all social science theory was constructed on rational and empirical grounds. So we do profit-loss calculations, and today in economics you can find many articles on profit-loss calculations for raising children. Is the amount of money we spend and the pleasure we receive from raising children worth the reward that we get? And similarly, should we take care of our elderly parents? We spent money and effort, and will it be repaid? So these are the social science questions that we are now, because we are rational and empirical, and we put hearts and souls and our fitrah out of the question, then these questions arise. The only solution to the construction of morality, there are two major principles. There is the religion that was launched by Jeremy Bentham, that he was strongly opposed to Christianity, and he said that the only rule for morality is pleasure and pain. If something gives me pleasure, then it is good. If something gives me pain, then it is evil. So that's the only principle of good and evil that is known to the West. The other principle on which, that's at the individual level. Now, what should happen at the social level? Well, that morality should be created by consensus. If we all agree to some law, then that law is the morality. Now, the problem is that different states have different laws. So, the conclusion was arrived at by Hegel, and it is now built into the framework of social science, that morality is only at the national level. And so, nations as entities are above morality. So this theory was used to justify an enormous amount of barbarism in the World Wars I and II, where, for example, Germany bombed mercilessly various cities and countries and they said, well, ethics does not apply when you are talking about interstate relationships. All of this is opposed to Islamic ideals, which have given us principles for all of these. So basically, the only principle of social science is freedom. And Hegel said, actually, the end of history was Fukuyama's article. Hegel said that basically history is a drive towards freedom. Freedom is the only principle of society. All of us are miniature gods, and basically society will reach the end when everybody is free. There are no rules, no external principles, no laws that we should follow. Worship of the nafs is what the Quran calls it. And freedom is the principle in all spheres of our life. In our social sphere, we are free to do whatever pleases us. If we want to commit ourselves to family, that's fine. If we want to break off that commitment, that's also fine. No promises are binding upon us. In the economic realm, again, freedom is the rule, and that's laissez-faire. Let everybody do whatever they want. And in political realm, freedom is the only rule. So this is the social science these are the roots of the social sciences. So, in terms of nature of knowledge, according to Western epistemology, knowledge is only of the observables. We cannot have knowledge of unobservables. So, heart and soul and things like purpose of life, excellence of conduct, spiritual progress, these are just meaningless words, because we cannot see these things and we cannot do experiments to find out what happens after life. We cannot do experiments to learn about spiritual progress. Actually, human beings are unique. Every single person is unique. So science cannot be applied to the construction of our lives, because I, as an individual living in at the moment, I have life experiences which make me completely unique. So no pattern of experience, past experiences, applies to my life at the moment. So once you say that science is the only source of reliable knowledge, then life experience becomes totally irrelevant, because it's unique, one-time phenomena, and you cannot build a science on it. So basically, lives of human beings are turned into robots, that's what behavioral economics is, that we respond to stimulus and reward, and we can be conditioned to do whatever we like, whatever is desired. Our behavior can be shaped, and there is nothing inside us. So the theory of knowledge is based on where the Quran starts with الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ as a characterization of Muslims. Western philosophy, social science is based on الَّذِينَ يُنْكِرُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. They reject anything which cannot be seen. So to launch an Islamic revolution, we must create an Islamic social science. And there is 1,000 years of intellectual material which we can use for this purpose. So it's not that we have to build from scratch, unlike the Western social sciences who had to start from zero and use only their aql and their mushahada, their observation of their own society and their own intellects. We have a huge amount of, we start with the solid foundation of wahi, revealed knowledge, and then we use 1,000 years of effort which has been gone into developing the Islamic ulum. So this is actually a golden opportunity for us. Today, Muslims are in shock and awe of the West, and we have done sajda to Western expertise. And that's why we are unable to see the defects in social science. Today, when somebody, basically it's the share of Iqbal that khira na kar saka mujhe. My eyes were not dazzled by the brilliance of Western knowledge, because they were protected by the dust of Medina and Najaf. So Iqbal was protected, but nearly all over the Islamic world, intellectuals are deeply impressed by Western social science, and they accept the findings, and they say that we are 100 years behind or more. And so first we must acquire this knowledge, and then we can be in a position to contribute. They don't realize that the emperor is naked. Western economic theory is all nonsense. If you look at what Freud thought about human beings and compare it to what Islam teaches us about the nature of human beings, you see that he is a baby lost in talking about nonsense, really, which in comparison with the sophistication and depth of Islamic teachings. So today the main problem is that because of our sajda to the West, we are unable to realize that the Quran and the Hadith offer us far deeper wisdom than about economics, politics, psychology, society, environment, than PhD from Harvard University. And that is the problem, that we want to get that PhD from Harvard first, and then, but that makes us blind to the wisdom of Islam. So, what are some of the foundations? Well, basically, Islamic social science will start with the foundation of the human beings, that every human being is infinitely precious. Every human life is infinitely precious. And what does that mean? Quran says that if you take one life, it is as if you have killed all of humankind. And if you save one life, it is as if you have saved all of humankind. So my mathematical minds find this very difficult to digest. How can 1 equal 5 billion or 7 billion? So the point is that this is talking about potential. Just like one seed, if it is developed, contains the thousands of seeds and then millions of seeds, as the tree which it brings will create 1,000 seeds, and all of these seeds will go on to create further seeds. So actually one seed is equal to 1 billion trees if it achieves its potential. Similarly, every human life is infinitely precious. So we must go beyond. We have been trained by our education into thinking that lives are for sale and purchase, and the value of life is that however much money you can earn in your career. So to learn that lives are infinitely precious, then the goal of the society is to ensure that everyone can develop his potential to the maximum. It is not to ensure that the GNP per capita is maximized. So one of the first things that we need to do is to inspire and motivate our students to reach for the stars, not to sell themselves to the highest bidder in the labor market. So these are some of the things that we need to do. So how can we can talk about infinite potential, but unless we exemplify this, unless we realize it in ourselves, unless we struggle to realize it, and unless we teach others how to struggle to realize it, this is just talk. So we have to understand this. We have to understand the complex nature of human beings, that we have hearts and souls, and the human heart is a battleground for good and evil. On the one hand, we have the nafs and the shaitan and the environment, which is constantly tempting us towards the evil. And at the same time, we have the wahi, and we have the guidance, which is telling us what is good, and we have built-in fitra, which guides us towards the good. So there are 3 stages of spiritual progress described in the Quran. One is the nafs-e ammara, which is exactly corresponds to the homo economics of economics, which says that it is driven purely by desire and pleasure. And this is the basis of Western social science. So, and also Western economic theory. So we say that how can we get beyond the nafs-e ammara? Well, this is when we fight against the what the economic theory calls the fundamental principle. The fundamental principle is utility maximization. Every rational human being seeks to maximize his pleasure. We say no. If we reject the pleasure, and Allah Ta'ala says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. Take the most precious thing that you have and give it away for the sake of Allah. This will actually strike a blow against our nafs, and that is the source of spiritual progress. That when we bind our nafs, we don't give in to our desires, then we will make our progress, and that eventually leads to nafs al-lawwama, who is a man who has a conscience, and he feels social responsibility. He feels pain when he sees somebody else is hungry and naked, and he has the means. And if you keep making spiritual progress, you get to nafs mutmainna, where you are integrated with the Creator and with the creation of God, the family of God. And this is the state about which huge amount of controversy exists, about the Wahdatul Wujud philosophy and so on. Anyway, the thing is that you will live in harmony with the designs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will not feel in the same ways that people who are at lower stages of spiritual progress do. So the goal of a life is to struggle to achieve spiritual progress and to ensure that everyone in society can also do the same. So some of the key aspects of this is to build families, which is the fundamental social unit of societies. If families are broken down, as currently in the West, more than 50% of the children are born to single mothers. So they don't enjoy and this has documented statistical consequences in terms of the children who are coming from broken homes have higher rates of depression, suicide, alcoholism, drug use, and all sorts of problems. So how can we build strong families? Islam offers us a huge amount of important guidance on this, and there are books and books about the rights of the husband on wife, the rights of the wives on the husbands, and the rights of children on parents, and so on. But the key thing which summarizes everything is the love and mercy between the hearts of the parents, and also the love and the mercy of the parents for the children. If you have this love, then all of the rules love will teach you. But if you don't have that love, then no amount of preaching of rules is sufficient to create the families. So Islam has the institutional structures for the larger social units. To build our communities, there are the masajid where we are supposed to gather 5 times and create the group feeling. Today it has left only as a ritual. People like myself go to masjid for 10 years every day, and they don't know the person who is standing next to them. They recognize the face, but they cannot tell the name. So the ritual remains, the buildings remain, but the heart of the matter has gone out. The Jummah was supposed to gather larger communities, and in the Eidan, even larger communities, and the Hajj was supposed to gather the whole Ummah. So the institutional structure remains standing, but the spirit has been lost. And the Prophet ﷺ is told, will you kill yourself with sorrow if they don't believe? So the Prophet's heart was full of love and compassion for all mankind, not just the Muslims. Today, the Muslims are divided into small sects, and they are doing takfir to each other and forget about the kafirin, that those are, they don't have mercy towards each other, forget about the kafirin. So again, we have strayed very far from the origins of the deen. And the love that we receive in our family is what is supposed to teach us how to love others, how to love all human beings. But with the breakdown of the family in the West, this has cast huge shadows in the Islamic world, and we see a huge amount of rising divorces and family structure problems, which we did not experience a generation ago. There are strong institutions which were built by Islam, which have all been lost in meaning. So there are actually 2 types of interest. One is the social loan. There are 2 types of loan. There is the social loan, which is given to people in need, and for that we have qarz-e hasana. And there is the business loan, and for that we. So today, both of these institutions are enormously superior to the interest. Today, we do both of them on the basis of interest, and this is extremely harmful, and many, many books and articles are written on why interest is harmful. Most interesting is Atif Mia and Amir Sufi's book on House of Debt, which makes no mention of Islam. These are Yale economists, and their book has they make no mention of Islam, but they explain how interest is very cruel and unjust, and it was directly responsible for the global financial crisis. And if instead of interest, a musharka mechanism where the bank's interest is aligned with the interest of the homeowner, so that both are parties the global financial crisis would not have taken place.
Excuse me, Dr. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think your video has paused. If you can try, or we can go ahead without it.
Well, how can we try it? Should we
You
stop
can
share or should we?
No. You can turn off your video. Can you stop video and then start it again?
Oh,
That icon, maybe it will work.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I think we can continue.
It's saying that Zoom meetings is not responding when I it says close the program or wait for the program to respond.
The video is not working.
Sorry to interrupt you. You're
voice
perfectly
is not
audible. We can perfectly hear you, but we're not able to see the audio from your side.
Yep.
Right, I understand. When I try to reach the Zoom controls, what it does is it says that Zoom is not responding.
Okay, Dr. Saab, you can stop the screen sharing
by this way as well.
No, none of the Zoom controls are now accessible to me. It just gives I can see the panel, but it starts circling, giving a wait signal. I'm on nearly the last slide. So let me just go through it. If you can hear me, then I think it should be fine.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. You can
complete
complete your presentation. Then for question and answers, we'll try to figure it out.
We will reconnect. We may have to reconnect.
Yes.
We may have to.
Okay.
All right. So basically, there are. We don't have to build on scratch. Oh, now I've got it back. Let me try to stop video. No, it's not working. All right. So I said that the interest institutions, we have alternative institutions which are not being practiced among Muslim countries, and this is really the sad story that today, instead of using our own institutions of Qarz-e Hasana and Musharaka, which are far superior to Western institutions, we are trying to mold Musharaka into an interest alternative. Instead of utilizing the genuine Islamic institution, we are trying to use Musharaka and Hila to create an instrument which works just like Western interest, because we are so convinced of the superiority of West that we cannot imagine that our Musharaka is actually superior to Western interest. Similarly, a central institution of the West is the bank, which is used for the accumulation of excess wealth. Our counter to this is the waqf, in which we use excess wealth to spend on others. And a society, just think, a society where every man keeps his excess money for himself, would you like to live in that society, or would you like to live in a society where everyone who has excess wealth is willing to spend on those who don't have? So the waqf is the institution for a society where everyone with excess wealth wants to spend it on others. Similarly, we had guilds in the marketplace. Guilds are collections of people like doctors, like woodworkers, etc. But the key characteristic of guilds is that they are out to serve society. They are not there to make profits. The reason that monopoly got banned in the West, because everybody was out for profits. So if the doctors form a monopoly, then they will start exploiting people. And
I think Dr. Saab got disconnected. He'll reconnect. Just call. Gigi. So you have the link. Can you connect again? Sorry for that, everyone. Dr. Saab is trying to reconnect. So if you can just hold on, he'll be here. Yes. On the second last slide.
Video started. Now I'm going to share screen. All right. So are we okay now? Are we connected?
Yes.
And
Yes, we are good. If you
all
can
right.
just maximize the.
All right. So I was talking about the institutions. We have amazing institutions which are basically built on cooperation, generosity, social responsibility, pursuit of excellence in conduct, as opposed to this Western social science and Western society is built on the ideas of competition, greed, hedonism, survival of the fittest, seize the day. Every individual is looking out for his own welfare. And in all, this has reflects in all institutions, whether it's insurance versus takaful. Insurance is somebody trying to take advantage of the distress of others. Takaful is everyone trying to help each other. Democracy is whichever group is in the majority, they are authorized to kill. There is a very deep analysis of the modernity and the Holocaust by Zygmunt. And he says that what happened to the Jews, the 6 million Jews who was burned, was a natural consequence of democracy. As if the majority wants to burn 6 million, there is nothing in the Western social science which stops them from doing so. If it is logical and rational and reasonable, you will do it if you think that this is the best for the group as a whole. As opposed to this, the method of Shura is based on collective consent. It tries to achieve consensus. The idea of Hegel that every nation builds its own laws and there are no laws between nations because it's all just a game of power. This is replaced by the idea of the brotherhood of mankind, which is the idea of justice in West. In America is adversarial. The two lawyers fight each other and whoever manages to win wins the case. It's just like the gladiator system where whoever two parties just put in their gladiators and whoever wins the fight, that party is right. As opposed to this, in Islam, justice is a cooperative search for truth, the search for the correctly delineated right. Both parties are supposed to participate in this. So in all situations, we have super amazing institutions, but we have abandoned them both in practice and we have forgotten their theory. So this is, I think, the last slide that talk is cheap. We can always talk about perfection, but where is the action? So this is a wrong framework, but because first we must have theoretical progress. We must have clarity on the conceptual framework. Then we can go about building it. If you want to create a building, you have to have the design for it first. And then today we have had successful Islamic revolutions in Afghanistan, Iran, Sudan, and other places, but they have failed to create Islamic societies because no living model of Islamic societies exist. Because in all our dimensions of life, we are using institutions created on the basis of theoretical frameworks developed by Western social sciences. So our banks and our insurance and our courts and our parliamentary system and our social life, our Christmases and our celebrations and our parties and everything that we do, our social life, economic life, political life, our relationship with the environment, these are all based on Western models. So we need to have clarity on a theoretical framework before we can actually launch. If we just go and start thrashing about trying to grab a rule without knowing what we will do with it, then this is a source of a problem. And now, what should be the pragmatic strategy to create change? There's a huge amount of conflict and dissent on this, and there is the discussion of top-down versus bottom-up approaches, both of which have been taken. And these are issues that I will discuss later. Lots of people raise questions about these issues, but first we must have clarity on a theoretical framework before we can talk about lines of action. Because different theoretical frameworks, different diagnosis leads to different kinds of medicine. So unless we have patience and we say, let's work out a diagnosis first, then we will give the medicine. If you say that, no, let's just start pumping in antibiotics because they will cure any disease, then you are liable to end up with the wrong, because you haven't focused on the diagnosis, so we'll end up giving the wrong medicines. So that is the end of the slides and end of this lecture. And so I'll open the floor for questions. Are we, you are muted.
Okay, sorry about that. We have like 10 minutes, so we can proceed with the question and answer session. I have a few questions on chat. We'll start with them, and then we can open the floor for and ask people to unmute their mics. So whoever wants to ask a question, if they can raise their hands.
Yeah, Munib Hussain, I see his hand.
May I come in?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Assalamu alaikum, dear Professor. Asad Zaman sahab, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I am Munib Hussain from Indian Kashmir, and it's really an honor to hear you out, sir, on these issues that confront us all the time. And basically, I may not be able to start the audio video because there is this internet issue here with me. I can only join in through audio.
Don't worry, just ask the question. We can hear you clearly.
I have two specific questions. One is general in nature, and another is specific to economics. As student of economics, I have that question in mind. One is very general in nature because when in the last slide you discussed that there have been evident failures in Afghanistan, Iran, or for that matter Sudan or different Muslim countries, while they were trying to do certain things that were Islamic in essence, but they could not reap the benefits. And while you tend to associate the reasons for that as I see them very simplistic, because you then tend to say that, okay, we don't have that living model with us right now for Islamic societies, so that is the reason why the experiments in Afghanistan, Iran or Sudan fail. But I have a very humble observation with regards to that. It's a very reductionist and very simplistic assumption that we're trying to make, because within the contemporary global reality is such that all these structures are controlled by this neoliberal system.
All right. So this is a question on which what the appropriate strategy should be is something I will discuss, yes. And I will answer your question, but not in this session.
Okay, sir. That is one question. And second is very, that's a bit critical about the way we conceive Islamic social sciences, because when we try to see Islamization project that has been going on from past 60 to 70 years, as a humble student of economics, what I see, sir, that is my opinion on it, you can always correct me if you think otherwise, is that the neoclassical construct of Homo economicus, based on those three basic assumptions of atomism and stuff like that, and an Islamic construct of Homo economicus. In their modus operandi, if they are not, if they may not be identical, but I see them as blood relatives, because the former in traditional neoclassical economics, it imagines a selfish man which has a lightning calculator of pains and pleasures and takes perfect decisions all the time. But when we talk about Islamic economics or Islamic social sciences, why we always have that?
I recommend you to read my article called Islam's Gift, an Economy of Spiritual Progress. But we cannot, this is too complex to handle right here. So let me go on to...
Sir, let me complete my question. Please, let me complete my question. The question is that when we see this Homo Islamicus now, Homo Islamicus is you tend to feel of this kind of an individual is that it evokes the images of an angelic being that always uses ethical yardsticks to arrive at, every economic decision or every decision.
As I said in my article called Islam's Gift, an Economy of Spiritual Progress, I have explained that the issue is about the struggle to be good, not the outcome. So we don't have perfect beings. We have people who are struggling to be good. And they can be at any stage of spiritual progress, from Nafse Ammara, which is Homo economicus.
But sir, the way we are conceptualizing Islamic alternative,
this is not
aren't we also arriving at a highly idealistic position? That is not very real. That is not very real in terms of.
Excuse me, we can move on to the next question, please.
Yes.
Ahmed Mabruk, sir, you can ask, please.
Assalamu alaikum and jazakumullah khair. When we build Islamic social science, one important topic is the basis of ethical or moral standards. This is usually, there is a big debate around it. And some of the stuff like charity and being good to neighbors, things like that, can be justified based on their social impact. But when it comes to the aspects of interaction between the two different genders, it is very hard to make a rational argument that can convince the Western mentality. So I'm just mentioning it may be something you are going to handle later, or you just want to say something about it. I'm just raising the point. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think a very crucial insight here is that basically the fiqh which was developed over the 1,000 years is rulings on how to behave in every realm, about nations, about individual behavior, about ethics, about morality. Everything is covered. But I'm not saying that we already have the answers. Rather, we have the framework in which to work out these answers. And so we have the basis on which to create an Islamic social science. It's very complex and sophisticated basis. But because the questions are all new, so we have to work out these new answers on the basis of machinery which has been built for us, but the solutions are not there. So we have to create a new Islamic psychology, a new Islamic sociology, and so on.
Okay, now next question. Is it? Can everyone hear? Okay, I'll ask the questions that I received on chat. My question is how we can implement this initiative in a developing country like Pakistan. We already depend on another country.
Yes, okay, again we're talking about the strategy for implementing. You see, there is something called, there is a very important distinction in games which is called strategy, which is the overall game plan. And then there are tactics, how to implement that game plan. What is the next step that we should take? So currently I'm laying out the big game plan, the broad perspective, under which once we have the theoretical framework, then we will decide, okay, how can we implement this framework, which is the tactics. So we can't talk about tactics without having strategy. Okay, go fight there, go fight that war. But if you don't have an overall game plan, then you won't end up with success. So currently I'm just laying out the broad framework, and then we will work on the tactics. Talha has raised his hand. So
Yes. Talha, please go ahead.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Ji, Dr. Saab, in your presentation, you mentioned that we have a very good two techniques of financial instrument like musharaka and mudarba or kharz hasna, and
yes.
then that we do not use it properly, and since we were so much overwhelmed with the conventional banking, we just forgot that we have our own economic principles.
Correct.
So the question that I have in my mind is that the current practice in our financial or Islamic banking sector is that they are offering musharaka, mudarba, and other these Islamic instruments that you mentioned. But the problem is that they are just an alternative of conventional banking. For example, if you talk about musharaka, then the interest rate they apply is against Kaibor, again a Kaibor. So what is the difference? Means that they are just renaming the old interest in and then giving us in something in a new package or in a new packet. So the soul or the main crux of the thing is similar.
Well, you see, we have to distinguish between genuine. I have a paper which is called Building Genuine Islamic Financial Institutions, in which I have said that most of what is happening today is imitation. Instead of implementing musharaka, which is Islamic in spirit and form, we are taking the musharaka instrument and using it to replicate Western interest-based transactions. Similarly for takaful, and similarly for other forms. So what we see on the ground is not the genuine Islamic form, which has an entirely different spirit behind it. We see use of Islamic forms to replicate Western forms, which are basically, the key is the cooperative versus adversarial nature. You see, insurance in the West is adversarial. If the client wins money, the insurance company loses, and if the client is not paid the full amount of his claim, then the insurance company gains. As opposed to this, the takaful is a win-win. We are all trying to help each other. And this is the spirit in which it needs to be implemented, but it is not being done like that. Next.
Okay, Qamar Abbas Saab, you can go ahead. Then maybe we can go back to Munib Hussain. Qamar Abbas Saab, can you hear us?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Ji.
Yes, sir. Dr. Saab, I have a humble question. Sir, when we say that Western economic theory is nonsense,
Yes.
we have to admit that free market economy has at least been successful in maximizing production. But the area, where it miserably failed is equitable distribution. Because free market economy relies heavily on market mechanism for organizing production and distribution. On the contrary, on the other hand, the socialism focused on distribution, but it messed up with the production, because the socialism calls for elimination of markets. So how do you think an Islamic model of economy can achieve equitable distribution without compromising production, particularly Islam's vision on markets, market mechanism? Thank you, sir.
Well, to begin with, you've asked questions which are, you're saying that we should let us acknowledge the accomplishments of capitalism in terms of maximizing wealth? Well, I think that if you look at cost-benefit analysis, how much wealth has been produced and compare it with how much wealth has been destroyed, then the hands down, it has been an extremely unpleasant experience for humanity as a whole. The cost of the lost, the oceans which have been polluted, and the skies and the destructions of more than half of the species of the planet, these are things which simply cannot be replicated in a million years. We just don't have the resources. So it's like, if the son of a millionaire starts spending his money wildly, then you say, oh, look, he is so prosperous, but he's using up resources. If you don't count we look at the benefits, we don't count the costs. And then if you do the calculation, and people have done the calculation, then you find that capitalism has not been successful. It has exploited humanity and the planet. And if you just look at the cost of this exploitation, the broken families, the species that have been destroyed, all of us have been enslaved to capitalism. We are all working day and night to produce wealth for the capitalist, and we don't have time for friendships. We don't have time for our wives and children. And this is a cost which is not considered in the GNP. And people who have taken this into account come up with entirely different conclusions.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So there was a question by Noha which I lost in the chat. So if you can ask it again.
Noha?
Okay, until she asks, we can go back to Munib Hussain, who's adamant he wants to interact with you. So Munib, you can go ahead.
You can have private time with me as much as you want. Just give me a call and we will... but if you ask a question, please make it about this lecture, not general question about things which I did not cover in this lecture.
Munib, you want to ask? Please go ahead.
I have a question. Dr. Saab, you mentioned that you need a conceptual, theoretical framework to be in place before we go on to action items. So you think that the Islamic movements have not done enough work on that? Is that what you implying?
Yes, absolutely. I think that this is something that I will be discussing in later lectures about the existing diagnoses of our problems by at least 7 different groups have tried to, major groups, and then there are lots of minor groups. And many of them have partially understood the problem, but I think that the central problem, which is the colonization of minds and the conquest of minds, and the necessity to reject. See, whenever I mention this, that, okay, all of Western economics is flawed, people immediately start defending that, we should not be anti-Western and so on. So this kind of, basically the realization that Western social science is an illusion is not there. And because of this, in economics, I can say that it's the lack of self-confidence, the fact that musharaka is different from and superior to Western interests is not there. So what we are doing is we are taking a better thing which we have and distorting it to match the interest-based transaction, which is worse. And the same thing is true in general, that we are taking superior Western models and distorting them to match existing Western ideals and saying that, okay, look, Islam says the same thing. For example, it's very common to hear that Islam is just teaching us democracy, even though what Islam teaches is far superior to democracy. But because West idealizes democracy, we say that, okay, because the West must be perfect and Islam is also perfect, so Islam must also be teaching us democracy, whatever it is. So this inferiority complex and this dazzlement by Western ideals makes it impossible for us to understand the true teachings of Islam.
So the next question was from Noha. Professor Asad, can you direct me to any of your papers if you have discussed in it the distinction between democracy and shura?
Well, this is something that political science, I have very peripherally mentioned it in a few papers, no more than a paragraph or two, but this is a topic that if somebody, since I'm not working in political science, so I haven't really dealt with it in detail, but yes, this is very important.
Right. There's a question by Ashar Humayun. He's asking, do we consider a Huwat model by Dr. Amjad Saqib as Islamic?
I don't know it in detail. To the extent that I know about it, yes, I think it is. But I don't know it in sufficient detail to be sure.
Right. Abu Abbas, do you want to ask? Or we can take Munib now.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, I have another question. The detractors of Musharaka, they say that there is a problem of moral hazard with these Musharaka things. So how would you defend this?
Well, if you read the book by Atif Mia and Amir Sufi called House of Debt, he has discussed the problem and come up with the solution. But it is complex and technical. But it can be done.
Okay, Munib, you can come in now. Everyone, can you please mute your mics?
Okay. Hello, Professor. Yeah. Thank you for providing me one more opportunity to ask you a question. And sir, if I have to take one thing out of the lecture that I got after engaging with this 1.5 hour session, is that we have this is for example, this is Western system, social systems, and these are its fundamental flaws, and how we can come up with an Islamic alternative, because we have, for example, better institutions that have history of operating in medieval times, if we have to say. But sir, I have one very fundamental question. That is, when we construct, for example, our economic theory from a neoclassical construction, it says us there is it's a homo economicus that, for example, has this lightning calculator that calculates pains and pleasures and comes up with the optimum solutions. And while we compare it with Islamic, for example, Islamic social sciences or an ideal Islamic man, but then, sir, and we call him homo Islamicus. That has ethical yardsticks to arrive at every economic decision or social decision that he confronts in his life. But then, sir, we are basically discussing the world. We are discussing the real stuff that we confront in our lives. As far as homo economics is concerned, that lies at the one extreme of the rope, and at the other extreme of the rope lies homo islamicus. Can a real analysis of the society be done with an individual, with an imagination of an individual that is more angelic in nature rather than human? That is my very fundamental question.
I have already answered this question once, but if I will refer you to my paper, Islam's Gift, an Economy of Spiritual Development. This question that you have asked does not relate to my lecture, but I have answered it in my paper, which is called Islam's Gift, an Economy of Spiritual Development. If you will download it from SSRN, then you will find the answer, inshallah.
Okay, Ali, you can go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Professor. Thank you for the lecture. Actually, my question, you mentioned that rather than moving towards the the social science...
Excuse me, can you
Faiza, mic is on. Faiza. Yes, Ali, go ahead.
Yeah, we mentioned that before moving towards translating this theoretical perspective into policy making, we have to work out the theoretical perspective of the Islamic social sciences. So from historical point of view, from where we have to start, either from the end of the Khulafai Rashidin, because anyhow we have got some sort of, not only some sort of detailed format of political, socio-economic system at that time. So I'm wondering, or it would be either the end of Baghdad region.
Right. Well, now you're talking about these tactics. How can we implement this? But I haven't really. Yes, this is an issue that I will get to. This is very important. What should we do? What is the first step? But basically, in any kind of tactics, you have to look at the fronts. There are 1,001 fronts on which we need to work. And obviously, we cannot work on all of them. So we have to sequence them in proper sequence. What are the easy things that we can do initially? And then how can we build on those initial steps? So all of this I plan to cover in a later lecture. But
Dr. Saab, is it okay if we can take like 2 more questions? Dr. Saab, can we take 2 more questions? I think Waqar, you can go ahead.
I can take.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Saab, I am Dr. Saab, मैं आपको बहुत ज़्यादा अप्रिशिएट करता हूँ कि आपने ये प्लेटफॉर्म लॉन्च किया और हमारे जैसे लोगों के मसाइल जो इससे जुड़े हैं उनको समझने का मौका दिया। और इसके बारे में डॉक्टर साहब मेरा क्वेश्चन है।
Both mics are muted now.
जी डॉक्टर साहब, आपको आवाज आ रही मेरी सर?
हाँ, आ रही है. Can you question in English because there are lots of people who don't speak Urdu on this.
Okay, sir. I use English, sir. Sir, I want to understand that our elders have done a lot of work in different fields in the medieval era.
Yes.
So about economics and the marketing and all things like that.
Yes.
Which person has done most of the work, and which type of book he written in Arabic or any translation in English or any other language, sir?
Well, you see, there is no book that we can find which will solve our problems of today. Our elders fought their own battles against problems of their times, and today we have to fight our own battles using the methodologies and the tools they provided, but we can't go and look up the solution to our problems in ancient books.
Okay, Faiza, you can go ahead.
Yes, Faiza. Go ahead.
Faiza, we can't hear you.
Low and unclear. Can
Hello?
you speak closer to the mic?
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks a lot for this panel, and thank you, Dr. Saab, for this for the presentation. My question really, I think it jives with everyone else's over here to find out if there is any kind of empirical evidence of the wonders Islamic finance has done or Islamic economics has done. You're referring to creating your own economic theory at this point in time, using the economic theory of the past, but is there any empirical evidence that we can use from the history to see what it did? And
yes, that was covered in the first lecture. 1,000 years of Islamic civilization, no one had to when people said that I want to get knowledge, no one said, okay, bring your money, then I will teach you. When people were sick for 1,000 years, nobody said that where is your money? If you don't have money, then you will not get treatment. It was understood by the entire society that it is our social responsibility, our collective responsibility, farz-e kifaya, to feed all the hungry, to educate all those who want to be educated, and to take care of the widows and to take care of the poor. This was a social responsibility, and it was fulfilled by the awqaf for 1,000 years in the Islamic civilization. Today, capitalism says that if you are hungry and you don't have money, then you deserve to be hungry, and so on. So that is the empirical evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Shahbaz, you are next. Please go ahead with your question. Noah, do you want to ask something until Shahbaz turns on his mic? Your mic is unmuted. Okay, Shahbaz, you can go ahead. Shahbaz Gul, do you have a question? I think, Dr. We can conclude today's session. There are no more questions. Right. People are raising hands, but they are not asking. What we can do is we have received
one question, please.
Okay, it's Waqar again.
Now, one thing that we can do is, you see, the ThinkLink course has comments and questions provision. So you can ask. Also, my email has been provided. You can send me an email to ask a question. So
yes, and we have received a number of questions on chat also. If any question has been missed, Dr. Saab will answer those on email. Those questions will get to Dr. Saab and he'll respond.
Sir, just 1 minute if you can, sir.
All right.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sir, thank you very much. Sir, I want to ask, what is your opinion about the fiat currency?
There is a lecture of mine on this issue, but this was not my current lecture, so I won't talk. But you can look up. This is a complex question, and I have many different lectures on this issue of monetary policy.
Thank you very much, sir.
Asher Humayun is asking to address his question. I think his question was about Amjad Saqib's economic model.
Yes, I said that to the extent that I know, it is very good and Islamic. I do not know it in specific details enough to give a fatwa on it.
Right, and Asher, you can always post. Okay, here's a comment. Please correct me. I understand economics builds on peace, which requires just power. Only then a positive political dialogue can promote to lift human to its creator.
Well, I think if we look at how the Prophet ﷺ operated to bring a revolution, we see that he operated during a period where there was lots of conflict and adversity and battles, and he managed to succeed. The same message has the same power today. All right, so I think we should conclude here.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. And if anyone feels that their questions have not been addressed, they can always post them on our platform. You've been emailed, and also we'll take questions from this chat if any question has been missed. Thank you all for attending today's lecture. And I would request again, if someone has not registered, please go and register on ThinkLink Institute's website. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for patiently taking so many questions. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam.